I want to ask you 4 questions. I'm assuming if you clicked on this video, you're probably a Stargate fan, or at least somebody who's familiar with the show and is interested in the idea of the franchise returning. MGM owns Stargate, and now Amazon owns MGM. So we're looking for Amazon MGM Studios, which is the new name, to announce the next show, the next movie, some kind of project. We don't have any news on that right now, although I am watching San Diego Comic-Con in July. That's a logical place where the studio might make a big sci-fi announcement like Stargate. But in the meantime, I'm interested in talking about what it would take, what kind of show would not only bring on new viewers, but also bring along the existing fan base. Obviously, I have my preferences, and here on our channel, as well as over on our website at gateworld.net, I've made those views clear as to what I want, but let's set aside for a second the idea that the next show is just going to be Brad Wright creating a 4th series that stars Richard Dean Anderson and the cast of SG-1, and some of Atlantis and SGU, and just brings all that back to make more of what we loved from 15 years ago. I think that ship has sailed, so let's talk about how Stargate might evolve in its place. I'm going to ask you 4 questions as we go. I really want to hear from you on this one. I'll share my thoughts as we go through this, but over on our website at gateworld.net, I've posted a series of polls that I'd like to invite you to go and vote in. So look for the link in the description below for the Talking Points article. Before you just go and vote in all the polls, I want to sort of talk through what I mean and set each one up. So watch this video for a few minutes. I'll tell you when to pause it, and you can vote in the first poll. I'm really interested to see how the Stargate community is feeling about maybe what could end up being a bigger change for Stargate. The basic question at the heart of all of this is, how open are we as Stargate fans to a different kind of Stargate show from a new group of storytellers? Could a rebooted world actually maybe turn out pretty well? So let's run down 4 of the biggest choices that the creatives behind a new series are going to have to make first. And here's the big caveat to keep in mind. We're not talking about the perfect show of your dreams necessarily. Instead, let's talk about what fans of Stargate are willing to give a shot. What does a new series need to look like in order to convince you to at least sit down and watch the first episode? The first and probably biggest decision that a new team of writers has to make is whether to continue the existing canon that covers 17 seasons, more than 350 episodes of television, or start over from scratch with a hard reboot. A continuation, I think, would respect the past and the audience that loves those shows, but more pragmatically, it would also allow the writers to utilize a deep well of characters and lore, and bring back actors for guest appearances. If we're not going to get Amanda Tapping or Michael Shanks full time, I'd love to at least see them on screen now and again. Bring back actors for guest appearances while moving the Stargate universe forward in some new setting. So think about it, if this show hits the air in 2025 or 2026, of course the names and faces at Stargate Command have changed. So we might think of this in terms of Star Trek: The Next Generation and its relationship with the original series. When TNG premiered in 1987, it was a very different kind of show than classic Trek. It was decades in the future, with a whole new cast. There's even a Klingon on the bridge. But the world of The Next Generation was still very much Star Trek. This was simply what Kirk and Spock's Starfleet had evolved into. There was a palpable sense of continuity. Now, the second option is a full restart of the lore, beginning all over again with the discovery of the Stargate on Earth. Retelling the Stargate story would have certain things in common with the original, but a show like that is going to forge its own path, setting up an ongoing TV series that might involve a secret underground military base. It might involve alien parasites called Goa'uld, but the story will unfold in a different way. So here, consider for example how 2003's Battlestar Galactica retold the story of the Cylon invasion and the fall of the 12 colonies. The new series followed the same story beats as the original show and involved many of the same characters, but it gave this world a really different original spin. And of course, the remake of BSG went on to become a modern sci-fi classic. Now, before I show you the poll, there is a third option here, which we might call a soft reboot, something that clears the board, possibly even recasts key characters, but maintains that vital line of continuity with the original Stargate TV franchise. Say what you want about J.J. Abrams' 2009 Star Trek film. Some people liked it, some people didn't, but I think what it did brilliantly was connect the old with the new. There's a little time travel, a bit of Leonard Nimoy, and what we ended up with is a different take on Kirk's Enterprise that maintains an alternate timeline relationship with what came before. It's a soft reboot because it's a retelling of some of the same stories using the same characters, but it doesn't wipe everything off the board. It specifically states this is an alternate timeline and the Prime Universe still exists too. Stargate could do that with time travel, with the multiverse theory. We've already seen parallel universes on Stargate. So here's the poll. Would you watch a reboot of Stargate? Let me know if you're totally fine with the idea of a reboot, if you're open to it only if it's done right, respecting what's come before, or no, any kind of reboot and you're not even going to watch the pilot. You can pause the video here, click on the link in the description, and vote in just the first poll on this page, then come back. The second question that I want to talk about concerns the actors. We've already mentioned the likes of Richard Dean Anderson and Michael Shanks, Amanda Tapping. You know, every Stargate fan is different. Every Stargate fan has their favorite show and their favorite cast members. And so I understand it. For some of us, it's not going to feel like Stargate if it doesn't have some of those specific faces or continue some of those stories. But a new show that's 15 or 20 years down the line, it's going to have a new cast. So let's talk about that. Both The Next Generation and Battlestar Galactica found ways to bring back familiar faces from their franchise's past, whether it was DeForest Kelley's unnamed admiral in Encounter at Farpoint, Leonard Nimoy and James Doohan made guest appearances in later seasons, or BSG completely recast Apollo actor Richard Hatch in a different role. Whether the next Stargate show is a continuation or a reboot, there could be a place for members of the previous casts, at least putting in occasional guest appearances. It would be fantastic to see them in the same roles, of course, checking in on Daniel Jackson, Eli Wallace, or Rodney McKay years later. But for a new show, I certainly wouldn't expect any former cast members to be full-time cast members in a fourth show. It's probably going to be more like Jack O'Neill's role in Stargate Universe. He's an important presence, he shows up every now and then, but he's really only in a handful of the show's 40 episodes. A new show is definitely going to be filled with fresh new faces, just like Atlantis was in 2004, and Stargate Universe in 2009. So whether it's Stargate Command 2025, or it's the story of a young Daniel Jackson being recruited by the Air Force to translate hieroglyphs, the show will have a new troupe of actors to play a team that's ready for adventures through the Stargate. So here's our second poll question. Would you watch a Stargate series without the original casts? Let me know if you think, well, a new show should have an entirely new cast, if you think former cast members should be limited to guest appearances, or if you think, no, we need to see at least some of the actors back, full time, or you're not going to give the show a chance. Head over to the website and vote in poll number 2 and then come back. You can pause the video here. One of the core elements of Stargate SG-1 was that the GATE program was secret. It was operated by the US Air Force out of a top secret facility under NORAD inside Cheyenne Mountain. But you know what? The creators of the show intended at some point that the Stargate would be made public. Co-creator Brad Wright said that that's a story you can only tell once, and so he wanted to do it in a big way, maybe in a movie. He also wrote a pilot for a fourth show where the Stargate would eventually go public. Amazon seems to have passed on that show, but let's consider this question anyway. If you've watched all 10 seasons of SG-1, you know the covert nature of the SGC contributed to a ton of stories. From Sam's tension with her father in Secrets, he wanted her to join NASA so she could go to space, to Senator Kinsey's control of the program's financing in Politics. He objected to the fact that $7 billion of public funds was being spent on something that the public didn't know anything about. And from a business executive's threat to expose the Asgard to the world in Covenant, to a possible future where the Stargate was public, available to all for off-world travel in that great 4th season episode 2010. But what about a new show? Does a new Stargate series need to maintain the secrecy of the Stargate, alien life, or Earth's fleet of high-tech battlecruisers in order to maintain the DNA of Stargate? Or is the core idea of Stargate big enough to accommodate a public gate? Really, the next show could go either way. Keep the Stargate a secret from the general public, or build a universe where the world just knows Earth's place in a bigger galactic community. So what do you think? Would you watch this show either way? Would you accept a Stargate show with a public gate? Or do you think they should keep the secret? You can pause the video here and vote in poll number 3. As a fandom, honestly, Stargate has already had one of its first big falling outs. That was when Stargate Universe premiered in 2009. A lot of Atlantis fans blamed it for the early cancellation of that show. And when SGU premiered, it was clear that it was a different kind of show with a different tone and a different approach to storytelling. It was darker, grittier, more handheld camera, and more of a focus on the tension between the characters and what the characters were going through internally. So, what do you want from the next Stargate show? Do you want something that's a little more lighthearted, adventure-driven like SG-1 and Atlantis? Or are you really looking for a modern take on SGU, something that is darker, more serious tonally, and more of a character drama? Thinking back to sci-fi's other great franchise continuations, both The Next Generation and Battlestar Galactica created shows that were tonally different than what had come before. Think about this for a second. The original Star Trek was an adventure series for the 1960s. It was a wagon train to the stars, as creator Gene Roddenberry put it. That show often ended with Captain Kirk getting into a fistfight, tearing his shirt, and kissing the girl, although not always in that order. Now, it also did smart and thoughtful science fiction incredibly well, of course. But there's no doubt that TNG's approach was a different sort of adventure drama, with a leader who was more inclined to diplomacy and speechmaking. Over the years, some fans have suggested that the original series was more action-driven, while The Next Generation was more cerebral. Now, BSG, for its part, went from a 1970s family adventure romp on a big network to a smart and tense character drama that helped to create so-called prestige television. And because we're talking about fan reception here, it's worth observing how fans of both shows reacted to those changes in their day. Some Battlestar fans rebuked the new version as just exploiting someone else's universe to make a completely different show, one that failed to honor what had come before. But in the end, that gritty drama won over a lot of people, myself included, and added countless new viewers who usually avoided science fiction. I lost count of the number of friends who would normally never watch a sci-fi show who came up to me wanting to talk about Battlestar Galactica. So what's the right tone for the next Stargate series? To find new viewers as well as bring along the fanbase? Or does this question even matter to you? Are you willing to watch the next show regardless of its tone? At least to see if it's any good. Here's our 4th poll. What tone of show would you watch for new Stargate? A lighter action-adventure series, a darker character drama, or either one? It just needs to be good. Pause the video here and go and vote in our 4th poll. Stargate fans like different things about this franchise, and that's okay. Some people love Stargate Universe. For some, it's the only Stargate that they're interested in watching, while others, it's not for them. So, as I've thought about how fans might answer the questions that I've posed to you here, of course I've thought about how I would answer them. Not for the perfect show, not for my ideal show that I would make, but what's a show that will bring me back to the table? What am I willing to accept as a fan? Obviously, I'm an anomaly here. I run this channel, I run a big Stargate website, and I'm committed to the franchise come what may. I think the real star of the show is that big, beautiful ring that takes us to an infinite number of stories. But I asked you to answer these questions, so it's only fair that I tell you how I would answer them. Well, I want a continuation of the story and the lore that I'm already 354 hours invested into. But I'm certainly willing to watch someone else's take on the idea. Seeing a new story about the Gate's discovery and humankind's first steps into the galaxy, that's intriguing to me. That said, were the new creatives to sweep those 17 seasons out the back door and completely disregard that history, that would be very painful. I'm heavily invested in this universe. It would create a show that almost dared me not to watch it, by taking something precious to me and declaring to the world that it's unimportant. As a sci-fi fan, I keep going back to the 2009 Star Trek reboot. Using a sci-fi conceit like alternate timelines or parallel universes is such a brilliant stroke, and Leonard Nimoy's performance did so much to help me love that story. If they didn't have Prime Spock traveling back in time and maintaining that line of continuity, right? My characters, the Next Generation characters according to the comics, helped Spock try and save Romulus. The way that story was told, it didn't tell me that my Star Trek didn't matter anymore. It bridged the two continuities, allowing the writers to tell new stories with legacy characters, but, and this is key, in a way that my Star Trek wasn't replaced by this new story. My Star Trek led to this story. If Stargate's new creative team chooses a reboot, I pray they'll have a similar wisdom. Honestly, if I can have that much, I'm on board for everything else. Yeah, I want to see former cast members return, ideally playing their same character, but I understand that those guest appearances need to work for the story. A brand new show for a modern audience, hopefully with a nice big budget, can't just be fan service. I am inclined to a story that keeps the Stargate a secret, at least for now. Maybe we'll get there eventually, but maybe only because that feels safe and familiar to me. Again, if there's continuity with what's come before, I think I'm open to just about anything. As for the tone of the show, lighter or darker, adventure or drama, as long as the show has heart and humor, with characters who rise above their base natures to work together for the common good, who place team above self, and display traits of courage, honor, and respect, well, then you've got a Stargate show. And I'll be there for the journey. So the ball's in your court, Amazon. What kind of new Stargate show are you going to give us? I hope that we're going to find out sooner rather than later, because a lot of us are getting pretty tired of waiting. But Stargate fans, we want to hear from you. This is about your views, what you'd like to see from a new Stargate show, and specifically, again, not your pie-in-the-sky ideal series, but what you're willing to give a try. So go over to the website, vote in our polls, and leave a comment below. Let us know what you think. Thanks so much for watching.